Was doing it in a southern accent really? Was that
I
necessary?
mean, Houston, right? It was launched from Houston. So, yeah. Okay. And by the way, this time, for the timestamps, you said you didn't know how to do that. Just, so like, I know it doesn't show it when you just hover over the screen. You have to go, you have to have your mouse back at the start of, like, the red progress bar. The start of it, not the end, and it'll show you how long it's been going.
Okay.
So, I mean, I can go do it myself. That's what I ended up doing last time. It took me 5 minutes, but it's convenient if I already have it. Anyway, let's do it. Audio test. Say some words.
Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Hello, Sophie. Why did you decide to walk through my office? Why are you now mad at me? You look upset as fuck.
Okay, and now you hush and I listen. Let's say some words.
Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Hello, Sophie. Why did you decide to walk through my office? Why are you now mad at me?
It's almost good enough. I just gotta turn up the desktop to like -7. Should be good enough. I just don't want you peeking out. All right. I actually have the wrong screen on right now, but nobody sees it, so it's okay. It's all right. I'm ready to go when you are.
I'm organized.
All
Best
right.
I can be.
All right, ready?
Yeah.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right.
I'm live.
We are live. Need to get a link.
Getting link.
I need to get a link.
There it is. Government by Circus.
Oh, I still don't have it. I'm refreshing my page here to no avail. Should probably get it up on my phone while we're waiting for people to file in. Huh. We have 2 people. That's the usual suspects.
Well, they both might be me. Oh shit, never mind.
No, it's not.
Okay, so...
Funny as that would be, no. No, it is not. Okay, so if I see it on my phone, I should be able to see it on my desktop now.
Hello, Houthis. Hello, Arken. We are doing some final checks. Preparing for liftoff.
I ain't doing any final checks, I'm just getting the link.
That's final checks for me.
Here it is.
Yeah, I've got it right here. Or, your link is different than mine. What the hell? This one not work?
They should both work.
One of them has a red sidebar and the other one doesn't.
It doesn't make a
One
difference.
says live. Okay, whatever.
Yeah, it doesn't make any difference. I switch them out sometimes when one of them doesn't work. Okay.
Forget the clack of the keyboard. What do you think of that? That's my fucking message. Everyone.
Yeah, that's fine.
That does while people are trickling in. I did want to where else could I post this here? You go live. Do that. No, talk about the messy bullshit line. I was talking to one of my friends who said like good morning to me at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I didn't even notice that I had received a message from them until 6, where I sleepily decided to send them good morning well after I'd been awake for at least 7 hours. And I said something to the effect of, "Look, I'm on my messy bullshit again, where I see a message and hallucinate responding. Like I left a niece on red for 6 hours, wondering why she wasn't playing Helldivers with you and I." I'm. Why the fuck is Quarmancy spamming "I love you"?
I don't know. We're gonna ignore it.
You did. You did call him a creature, then
I
a
think he's
creature.
high.
I don't know.
Anyway, we have people in.
We
We should
do.
probably.
11. How's everyone doing today? We'll get into a more proper introduction in just a minute. How's everyone doing today?
I'm not answering that.
Why are you not answering that?
You know why.
Yeah, we're gonna dedicate this stream to your father. Yeah.
He's not dead. Not many people think he's dead. He had his fucking gallbladder removed. He's under anesthetic right now. It was like literally an hour ago.
Our soothing voices are going to be a balm that will help him.
I doubt that. I really powerfully doubt that.
Oh, why are you just saying he's tired of listening to you and I drone on about shit he already knows?
Yes.
Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes,
Wow.
that's what I'm saying.
Wow. Makes me question why.
Do I hate U.S. East Coast viewers? Yes, I do.
Barn, you're telling me it's like 11 o'clock at night. But, I mean, I was promised we were going to start at 10. And yet here we are.
Hey, the French Resistance did this shit at 3 in the morning. We'll be fine.
Fair enough. Let's see. You just timed Quarmancy out.
We will have decorum in this court.
Oh, decorum, is that what you called it last time?
Yes.
Uh-huh. Anyway, now that we've got like 12, 13 people here, shall we go ahead with the introduction? The intro?
Who wants to do it?
I have a bit of an idea. Hold on, you timed him out for 1,800 seconds.
30 minutes.
Oh. Okay. Alright. No, everyone, hi. Welcome to the 5th installment. The Circus has come to town, ladies and gentlemen, and this town, at the very least if you're Cormancy, is DC. Get doxxed, idiot. No, I'm joking. No, so we've got a lot to talk about this evening. We've got... It feels like I need a new intro catchphrase, because saying that we've got a lot to talk about this evening and that a lot of stuff happened, honestly, is starting to get old. I know the meme of I hate living in interesting times, make it stop, is overplayed for a reason, but there are some times where I'm just like, bro, I've got to pay bills. I cannot be fucked. Like, you know what I mean?
Indeed.
And yet, here we are, same as always, on our regularly scheduled programming to catalog democratic backsliding and the fall of our precious democracy. Wilson is like, where the fuck do I even start? Yeah.
We're gonna start off easy. We're gonna start off with things happening elsewhere. But
before we begin, thank you all for tuning in. We really appreciate it. The fact that we have such a reliable viewers count has us keep coming back, feeling to ourselves like this is important. Even if we decide to finalize the script for everything that happens the day of, and then slave for an hour beforehand to, Arken anyway, slaving an hour beforehand to get the pretty pictures in order that we're using. But we are about to get started from afar, so may I offer a suggestion, Wilson? Sure, and then we're going to get right at it, because I can feel all the way from DC, Arken's... Oh, shit.
Neither of us is in DC. What do you want about?
No, not DC. I'm sorry. I don't know why I said DC. What I was trying to say is the only I can detect Arken's beady eyes all the way from San Diego staring me
Wow.
down.
Okay. No, I could use the buffoonery today. It's been a week. People,
It's been rough.
I did not know
I
if I
mean,
was going to do this stream today, because I mentioned last time my car getting stolen and recovered, and it's still in the shop being repaired. But because life just keeps happening, my dad's now in the hospital, having just had his gallbladder removed. He's fine. He'll be fine. Don't worry, I'm fine as well. But I've not gotten a lot of sleep this week. A lot of driving to and from the hospital. A lot of doctor's visits. It's been unpleasant. So this is my refocusing on the shit show happening outside my own life.
yeah, I mean, we are you and I are rapidly transitioning to a phase in our life where it's just like, man, the horrors persist, but so do I.
Also,
Mostly because
that's
the
a
horrors do not
that
directly
is a
affect me.
shirt. That's a shirt that Maya gifted me for New Year's. Horrors persist, but so do I.
I could
Also,
choose that shirt.
Occam's suggestion for you as a catchphrase is "Let's get this over with because I've got bills to pay."
We're gonna steal that. I'm gonna copy paste that and put that in the script real quick. Hold on. I'm just gonna put it right underneath. Get this over with. I got bills to pay. Yeah, there you go. Thank you
All
for
right.
that absolute banger, Occam. Yeah, we're about to get right into this. So yeah. Where do we begin, my friend? Where do we begin?
Uh, oh, you're putting in the document. Okay.
I told you I'm putting in the script.
I see. Well, I can get right into the news overview that, as usual, we ended up putting together the day before by scrolling my
Hey,
Twitter
listen.
mostly.
At this point, it makes more sense than us just randomly. Like, okay, right before we start, I know we've said right before we start for the past 10 minutes, it feels like, but ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we do kind of put together the thing that we do, the not the script, the list, the
The
topics
outline.
tracker,
Yeah.
the outline, yeah. Pretty much the day prior that we decide to stream, and honestly, as much as that sounds like procrastinating on your finals and then doing the last paper right before you turn it in, unfortunately, the other methods that we've tried, which consist of, oh, if something interesting happens throughout the middle of the week, write it down, hasn't really worked well for us. And it's only by putting the past 2 weeks in retrospective can we really separate the wheat from the chaff, as it were, to figure out what's really important to talk about and what just needs to be passively
It's a decent system we
mentioned.
have going here. So
It's the
this
only
one,
good system, really.
this is
But
the shortest outline in terms of major points that we have so far. So
yeah,
we'll start
the
with
first
just
100 days are about to come to a close. Actually,
yeah, they are. So what we're gonna start with is we're gonna start with just going over very briefly what we're gonna discuss, and then we're gonna get into it. So there's gonna be the regular 20-minute or so overview of the news, with each point being 2 to 3 minutes or less. And then the three major points that we're focusing on today, there really aren't many of them, is the budget bill that passed the Senate and the whole mess that surrounded that, mass deportations by ICE, and the legal dubiousness of that. And really, we really get this news every day, right? I mean, every single time so far, there has been a major news event the day after we streamed that we totally could have talked about. And in this case, there was a major news event the day before we streamed, which is the Signal group chat. If you know what I'm talking about, you're in for a good time. If you don't, you're in for a better time, because you'll be hearing it for the first time. So, yeah, that is the plan for today. I honestly don't think it'll take us more than a couple hours, and that is probably for the best.
yeah, we've got. Listen, for those of you who are in chat, the new major order in Helldivers already halfway done. Can't beat that shit. I want everybody. If you need something to listen to while playing Helldivers, put this in your ear and deploy the. Where is it again? Something Bay. Where's the major order?
I don't.
We
Somewhere.
just liberated Borrock.
I don't know how many of our viewers are Helldivers players, though.
You all should be Helldivers, okay?
They all should be, but I don't know how many of them are. In fact, I don't know if any of them are. Probably one of them. But, like...
Man, the only final non-news related thing that I'd like everybody to know right before we hop into it, my girlfriend got for me this like gallon thing of Hawaiian Punch. It's surfing strawberry citrus, and this is going to keep me hydrated throughout the stream because I ran out of tea. Didn't have time to brew more, so we're gonna have a taste test right here, live on stream. Oh, that's quite good. That's quite good. But all right. Enough goofiness. You did a little bit of an overview. You want me to start in?
I mean, the first one is definitely the first one is something I should cover. If you want to take any of these, go for it.
Head right to it.
So we're going to start with kind of an overview of foreign policy. It wasn't meant to be this way, but all of the first few points are to do with foreign policy. So we're going to ease into the shit show happening here by first talking about the shit shows, plural, happening outside of here. So, let's talk about Gaza, something that I have avoided doing for I think all of these streams so far, except for maybe the first one, because frankly it makes me very depressed, and it is a conversation that never ends, because it is a conversation without a solution. So
you gave the majority of your thoughts last stream.
I did. I don't like talking about it because it's a completely static debate. It's a completely static thing. Nobody is ever going to have their minds changed on this, and frankly, our opinions don't really matter in the grand scheme of things. But
to summarize, TLDR, Hamas is terrorist, Netanyahu's a fascist, the people suffer in between.
Pretty much.
The roses are red, the sky is blue, what else is new?
Yeah. So, the reason I'm going to talk about Israel this time is not really because of what's happening there, but because of what it portends happening here.
Mm-hmm.
Take a big swig of water before that. Okay. Setting down the cup, let's talk. So, I don't remember the exact date. Sometime in the last week, the Israeli Defense Forces began bombing cities in Gaza, well, what's left of them, again. Now, there have been several ceasefires. There's this ceasefire now movement, but it's very misguided. There have been many ceasefires in this war, and all of them, so far, have been broken by the terrorists and Hamas. Well, a couple months ago, they finally negotiated an actual prisoner exchange to get the hostages home and end the conflict, presumably for good. Those hostages have been being exchanged slowly one by one over the course of the last couple months. Then, absolutely out of nowhere, with no warning whatsoever, Israel starts bombing Gaza again. Now, I've made my position clear. I'm Jewish. I'm generally pro-Israel, not pro the government, but pro the people and pro their right to exist, which makes me, by definition, a Zionist. But I really hate their government, and I really hate Netanyahu, and that's what I want to talk about. Because there is a reason for those military strikes. Just one. Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel for the better part of this century, has been under criminal investigation for massive corruption, and it's stretched out for several years. He has been in and out of government over the course of those years. He was set to have a criminal trial the day of the military strikes. He ordered the strikes, and the trial was suspended because Israel once again found itself on a war footing. Now, I take the apparently minority opinion within my own generation that what Israel's done for the most part over the last year and a half has been justified. They've made mistakes, and the aims of their government are certainly unscrupulous, but they were attacked unprovoked. And they defended themselves. They demanded the return of their people who were stolen, and that was all justifiable. They got a peace. They're starting to get their people back. The war doesn't need to continue. The strategic objective, ostensibly, has been reached. But Netanyahu wants to stay out of prison, so he starts killing people. So for the first time in this war, you really can say that Gazan children and women and disabled people and whatever else are dying for nothing. It wasn't true before. I don't believe it was. I will continue to argue that it wasn't. But now it is. This time, anyway, it is. There was no attack by Hamas. There was no planned attack by Hamas. They didn't even try to claim that such a thing was happening. They are just attacking Gaza with no clear strategic or tactical objective to keep Netanyahu out of prison. Why do I want to talk about this? Why am I talking about this for so long and what's supposed to be a quick overview? Because Netanyahu is Israeli Donald Trump, only a lot smarter. He uses the military to keep himself out of prison. Trump, too, uses the power of his office to keep himself out of prison, as he is constantly under a ton of different criminal investigations. Now, I don't know that he will end up doing the same thing. The fact that the president is essentially immune to prosecution certainly forestalls that particular possibility. But it is a reflection of where we are headed and of how people are dying to keep these people out of jail and in power. I could pontificate on a theory that I have that we are eventually going to declare war on the Mexican cartels, do almost nothing, and use it as an excuse to declare martial law, but I'm going to save that discussion for when it actually happens, or looks like it might happen. Next. And the next few we're going to just pretty much read them off and weep and move on, because there's not a whole lot to talk about. Justin, well, if you want to. Do you want to do the next one, or?
I intended to. I kind of got a Mark
for
Carney shit to go here. So, in somewhat lighter news, I would hope then, Arken debating whether to finally not start referring to the conflict in Gaza with the G word. Mark Carney has been elected the leader of the Canadian Liberal Party, which makes him the direct successor to Justin Trudeau, the person who is going to become the Prime Minister the instant that Trudeau steps down. Carney he's an interesting fellow. As far as I can tell and understand, he was originally a Canadian loyalist, and I mean that in like a very Canadian patriotic liberal intertwinement stance. But he, for some time during Trudeau's premiership, whatever you would call it, decided to go to England, where the Crown offered him a job running the Bank of England. And now he is back, and he has kind of, I don't want to say weaseled his way up, but he has caused quite the upset. There was somebody else who everyone thought was being groomed to take over Trudeau's leadership of the party, and yet here comes Carney back from England with a mandate and a job and a purpose. And honestly, he is probably going to lead the Canadian Liberals, the Canadian Liberal Party, for the next long time, at the very least perhaps for the next decade. He is riding a wave of a Canadian Liberal movement that Trudeau both almost got killed, and then when Trump got elected, it was Trudeau's decisive actions that created this resurgent wave, him being like showing a narrow loss in the polls in the next upcoming Canadian general election.
These are what the opinion polls look like in Canada. They had the Conservatives. Yeah, the Conservatives were overtaking the Liberals by a massive amount for a very long time. And then you see here, January 24th was a polling date, and it just begins to crater as Trump presents more and more of a threat, and Canadians simply don't seem to trust the Conservatives to govern in a particularly patriotic and anti-American way.
Yeah. But Mark Carney has kind of got the right sauce. He's no longer part of the Trudeau dynasty. He's a little bit of an outsider, but he's got that Tim Walz sauce. He's good on TV. He's good on a talk show, but he definitely knows what he's doing. I mean, not anybody can get to covering the Bank of England, the thing, Canada. The institution, the Bank of Canada and the Bank of England. But most importantly, the Bank of England. I mean, shit. Pound sterling. England as a country, the United Kingdom as a country might not be doing too well, but the pound is rocking. And for the past couple of years, you can credit that to Mr. Mark Carney doing some business. So he has got an economic mandate, he's got a plan, and he's got the Walt sauce, is what I'm going to call it. So I'm thinking that Canada is on the right track. Moving from Canada to Turkey, however, we got the governor of Istanbul arrested on bogus corruption charges. I don't know how to pronounce that. You want to give it a try?
Sure, let me actually get his first name, though, because I don't remember his first name. Not the governor. I don't think Istanbul is a province or whatever their
governor mayor. That's
mayor.
I think mayor.
Ekrem İmamoğlu. That's my best attempt.
Ekrem İmamoğlu.
Not Ekrem. Ekrem.
Ekrem.
He was arrested. He was arrested 2 or 3 days ago, by the government for charges of, I believe, corruption. He is the main figure of the opposition in Turkey. The Turkish government has been mainly composed of the AKP. I don't remember what that stands for. The Justice and Development Party, the party of incumbent president and de facto dictator Recep Tayyip Erdogan, a aging politician. I think he's in his 70s now, 71. He has been in power for a ridiculous amount of time. Let me find the... He was first the Prime Minister of Turkey from 2003 to 2014, and then he assumed the presidency in 2014 and has been in power since then. I don't know what the division of power between PM and president is like there, but point is,
is very similar to Prime Minister and President of Russia.
Probably, but still, point is, he's been high up in government for a very long time, and he has been increasingly turning himself into a dictator. He's a big friend of Donald Trump. There have been massive protests in Istanbul and across the country, though the election in Turkey, I believe, isn't for like 3 more years, so we will keep following that as there is more news. Moving on to kind of very related pieces of news, and I'm going to actually open the article for this.
I'll read this up and let you expand. So, Trump and Musk in their ever idolatant, I guess, crusade to cut DEI spending. Itinerant, there you go. His itinerant crusade to cut DEI spending, cut the program to track Ukrainian children that had been abducted by Russia. And in doing so, he also cut the agency that manages global media, think VOA, Radio Free Europe, etc. All those things, all those, as he would call them, Soros-backed Democrat liberal propaganda machines, buzzwords, are being shit-canned, as far as we can tell, with discussions between European governments to try and keep these voices of democracy still being able to go across the airwaves. Arken?
And at the same time, he has cut funding. I'm just going to read the headline here. Cut funding for a program that would track Ukrainian children abducted by Russia, which deserves some explanation for those of you who don't know, which will be most of you probably. It's kind of an obscure-ish story, but it's important.
Oh boy, here we go.
Since the war in Ukraine began in 2022, there have been tens of thousands of children, Ukrainian children, taken by Russian armed forces and shipped off to Russia to be Russified, basically. Separated from their families. No concrete information about where they are or the condition that they are in. The U.S. government apparently had a program to track them to the greatest extent possible, and now it has been cut. The foreign aid freeze has jeopardized and may ultimately eliminate our informational support of Ukraine on this front, on the abducted children front. Research on the abducted children has been discontinued. As for the U.S. Agency for Global Media, which is what Wilson was talking about, you will recognize them most from the Voice of America and Radio Free Europe, also known as Radio Liberty, who I was going to apply to work for this summer, but I guess that's not happening because they are being defunded. They were founded under, I want to say JFK, but I don't remember. In the 50s or 60s, they were founded. They were a Cold War initiative. They broadcast in a bunch of Eastern European and Asian languages into formerly communist dictatorships, countering the propaganda of those countries' governments. In the aftermath of the Cold War, they have become a more regular kind of news service reporting on the goings-on of those regions, and they've been defunded because, of course, this counts as foreign aid. And now they are kind of going rogue and discussing with various European governments about obtaining funding from them to keep them alive, since, of course, all of their headquarters, all of their staff are in Europe anyway, so it's not like we can force them to do much. And they are now seeking funding from the European governments, so we are destroying our own soft power for a laugh, essentially. Onwards, speaking of... Do you want to do this, or do I want to do this?
About tariffs? Yeah, I'll do some tariffs. So, who likes market instability? Apparently, the world's richest man and his puppet president. Because we've got tariffs that have been constantly announced and then revoked over the course of the past 2 weeks. So let's get down to brass tacks for it, because I'm certain Arken's about to show up the exact tariffs. We probably made mention of this on the show before,
Okay.
But tariffs in this instance are less of a real geopolitical strategy or principled economic position, and more so a way to pander to his base without actually having to do anything or incur any of the damage that a trade war would cause. American people suffered under the first Trump presidency what a real trade war was between China. We suffered it, I think, pretty much all throughout the year of 2017, all the way up to 2018 or 19, I want to say. Bouncing back from that, it's just free press, really. The Trump campaign is constantly able to lie, tell their sweet little lies to their constituency about how other countries rip us off, and that by putting on tariffs, it is a good way to make them finally start paying. Despite the fact that everybody with a brain that is slightly larger than you could put on a thin water biscuit would know that tariffs are little more than taxes on the end consumer, and that it is never the opposing government or the targeted governments or their citizens that end up paying taxes on it. And in reality, the only thing that it does is agitate our partners. It is, again, the self-destruction of American soft power at the cost of pandering, or not even the cost, at the benefit of doing little more than pandering to his base. So, just to waffle on a little bit more, no more than a little bit, tariffs in practice are really supposed to make local goods competitive. If an American product costs $10, but somebody from a foreign country can make it for $5 and sell it to the United States for $7, if what your economic principles are is to make American goods more competitive, you would place a small tax in order to bring that $7 up to $10, or perhaps even $11, so that the American good, being at $10, is cheaper by comparison. This is Economics 101. You can go all the way back to the writings of Andrew Smith, I think is his name.
Adam
Smith, I'm sorry, and figure that
Close.
out. Yeah. But
you got the first
again, but again, that's not the point that's being made here. It's not about making American goods competitive. It's not about encouraging American manufacturing. If it was, these tariffs would be targeted, they would be sensible, and they would be instituted by people who didn't write the manifesto that was Project 2025. Instead, it is just a cheap method of click farming, as we are going to see. We're having a lot of that since the past 2 weeks. Jacob?
What always strikes me with tariffs is, in the first Trump administration, at least, he actually did tariffs. They were ineffective. They made things worse and more expensive. But he actually imposed tariffs. He made an argument for them. A bad argument, but he made an argument. And he
You
kept
telling me
them.
Trump did what he said he was going to do? Scandalous. Who would have thought?
But he did do what he said he was going to do. Right? He said, I'm going to put massive tariffs on China. And he did. He did put massive tariffs on China, and he kept them. And Biden kept them, too, by the way. I don't know if he ever did actually repeal them in the end. At first, he didn't, at least. I remember that. And now we have a new dynamic, which is best encapsulated in one of the memes that we at Project Liberal made. I say we as though I had any involvement in it, just kind of like thumbs up to it. But basically it has Trump presenting a tariff and a MAGA supporter going, America is back! And then Trump repeals the tariffs and the MAGA supporter goes, art of the deal! And so on. And it's interesting because Trump clearly, he has very few strongly held beliefs. He doesn't believe in anything. But he has been talking about tariffs for 25 years, if not longer. He clearly genuinely believes in this as economic policy. But Trump isn't really in charge anymore. And we're going to get back to that toward the end in more detail. Trump rolls out tariffs to appease his base. His supporters see Trump imposes tariffs which will make American goods competitive, and they cheer. And then Trump rolls back the tariffs, or in this case, what got us to put it on the agenda for today is this: Trump tariffs on April 2 will be narrower than previously threatened, which is a fancy way of saying we're either not going to have them or they're going to do absolutely nothing. Because someone, somewhere in Trump's economic team clearly understands that tariffs are incredibly unpopular. Here, look at this. U.S. stocks surged on Monday on the news of narrower tariff plans. The Dow Jones Industrial Average climbed nearly 500 points, 1.2%, while the S&P 500 jumped 1.5%. The tech-heavy NASDAQ increased more than 2%. So it's very clear. Whenever we announce tariffs, the stock market goes down. Whenever we roll them back, the stock market celebrates. It's very clear that the markets don't really want tariffs, but Trump needs to do it to keep his promises and to keep his base happy. And because his base is in such a captured and twisted media environment, they don't really see or notice or care about the tariffs being rolled back because they have been convinced, and convinced themselves over the course of the last decade, that it's 4D chess, that this is some high-level, brilliant move being made to create more favorable conditions for a trade deal with these countries. The greatest trade deal in the history of trade deals, as he would say. It's bread and circuses. It's not policy. It is simply meant to pander to his base without having to incur any real damage that a trade war would incur. Because, of course, trade wars, no matter what Trump says, are not good and easy to win. That is something he actually said in his first term. Trade wars are not good and easy to win. They are usually bad and they are very hard to win. Because it is a war. Not a war fought with bullets, but a war fought with dollars. Or whatever your equivalent is. And people have to take some damage to win a war. Any war, no matter how successful, will see both sides take casualties. In this case, economic casualties. But he can't afford economic casualties because his economy is in the toilet as it is. So all he needs is to pander to his base and make them happy, and that's good enough. Next, let's talk about Doge. Not for a very long time. Essentially, they're trying to commit political suicide by... Let me open up this article actually, so I have more specific.
While you're opening it up, ladies and gentlemen of the audience, who would like to take a guess as to what is the most popular government program that is currently on the books
That has ever
at
been on
a
the
whopping
books.
87, that has ever been on the books with a whopping 87 approval rating by Americans
Can you
poll.
find me that?
That's right. If I can find it, yeah. Oh, for Christ's sake, Bloomberg, leave me alone.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Subscribe now for uninterrupted access.
Yeah, I'm removing the link. It's useless. Yep, it's
But no,
Social Security. The arc reactor got it correct. Ding, ding, ding. It's Social Security, the most popular social program that has ever existed in these United States and probably ever will. It is the backbone of our entire retirement system, which, might I clarify, is all of the old people, everybody's parents and grandparents, essentially, are on Social Security. And everybody essentially understands that they will be on it at some point.
It is the most effective anti-poverty in elderly scheme possible. Like, before it was instituted, so it was something to the effect of the poverty rate amongst the elderly was like at 80%, or something not as absurdly high, but still ridiculously high, 60, 70, 80%, something of that number. Whenever it was instituted, it went down to 20. Social Security was a program that was instituted in 1929. It is an austere organization. And everyone's favorite internet meme dog, full of groypers and tech bros, like to bring their chainsaw to it. Out with the old, in with the new, right?
I
don't
know that they'll end up doing it. See, this is going to be the main subject of the night. We are governed by clowns. The prisoners are running the asylum. And I will talk more about this later, but for us, as the resistance, I suppose, that is a very good thing. I do not want Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid to be cut, because I want a future, and I want, my dad, who's 60, to be able to retire. But at the same time, there is a part of me that is eagerly urging them to cut Social Security and Medicare, because I believe it will lead to the greatest democratic landslide since 1964, which we kind of need right now. It would make 2006 and 2008 look like a joke. Social Security and Medicare is, no matter how much they have tried to make it so, not a partisan issue. 87%, I don't have the study on hand, but according to Wilson here, 87% approval rating, and I believe it. Everyone loves Social Security and Medicare. People complain about it, people bitch about it, people moan about it, but they...
Insert Simpsons clip.
What you're saying, Arken, is you're an accelerationist. A little bit, honestly, but not the way you usually hear it discussed on the internet, like, oh, I want capitalism to get worse so we can have the great socialist revolution. No, I don't want things to get worse. I just want things to get worse quicker so we can be done with this shit quicker and get back to normal. Or a new normal, I suppose. There is no back to normal at this point. But creating a new normal, a new stability, quicker. I don't want this to have to go on longer than one administration, so the faster they get this over with, the better. In the same vein, they are attacking the Department of Education, which is something that was explicitly laid out in Project 2025, which supposedly Trump knew nothing about and disavowed and didn't want anything to do with, yet he has implemented most of their proposals.
Until they started signing executive orders. So, by the way, I sent you an article regarding Social Security popularity. But no, so just to kind of start with the Department of Education, a little bit personally, I wanted to go, or at the very least start, higher education this year. I wanted to have that be in part paid with by a Pell Grant and a few other grants that I believe that I qualified for. Now I'm glad that I didn't, because the only reason that the Department of Education still exists on paper today is so that the administration can still figure out how they can revoke Biden's debt forgiveness and or keep the debt that is still on the books. I think what they're trying to do, the most recent thing that they're trying to do, is simply reorganize the debt that students hold that's payable to the government, reorganizing it under the Department of the Treasury so that it can be paid out via taxes. And so, with a flick of a pen, the Department of Education will simply be erased from history without the assent of Congress if the administration can get their way. And if I may be permitted to waffle on just a little bit more, fascists, I believe we can all agree, go for intellectuals. So there's one thing that I will encourage our audience to do today, and that is read a book. I know it was a meme back then. Read a book. Any book. Do what you can. Titillate your mind. Any experience you can get that is not just the drivel of doom scrolling or logarithmically decided content for you increases your critical capacity to think. And that is the one thing that the administration does not want you to do. They will always attempt to rewrite the narrative, to take complicated situations that experts are able to break down into smaller bite-sized pieces that are more digestible. The administration and the administrations of fascists will and always will try to generalize the problem, say that it is simply too big, or sell you snake oil to say that they have a problem to fix, or they have a solution to fix the giant complicated problem. So, do what you can. Continue a journey of lifelong learning. Read a book. The book that I am going to be trying to read is a Warhammer 40k novel, Know No Fear, by Dan Abnett. I encourage all of you to read a book and to pester Arken in the in the Situation Room Discord about all the books that you've read over the next 2 weeks. Let's go to the next one.
I, meanwhile, received Democracy in America by de Tocqueville and The Silmarillion by you-know-who for New Year's, and I need to read those books. I also bought another book by Bob Woodward. I have a lot of reading material, and I have not started it, to be truthful, but maybe I will tonight. Is it just to make a point? Probably, but sure, why the hell not?
Read what you want. Read fiction, read nonfiction, titillate your mind, do world building, write for your own personal gain, journal, do things that encourage your capacity to critically think and to question the world around you. Do that. If we're not going to have a Department of Education, then by God, we will do it ourselves. Whether it be me reading a fucking book about a entire universe who's been propped up by the sales of plastic miniatures to adults, or to an actual dissertation of American democracy that will probably be of greater academic value. The point is simple. Expand your horizons. Read, read, read. On the next thing, which is slightly more depressing than the destruction.
Hang on, we'll get to that. Before we do, I'm gonna one little. This is just actually. You know what? I'm gonna put a pin in this. I'm gonna write it down for right before we get to the main stuff. Okay, we'll get back to that. It's a thing in the chat. I want to get back to that in just a little bit. Okay, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, save it. It'll fit better there. Okay, so yeah, as Wilson put it pretty well, the government, this government in particular, wants you to be ignorant. Trump laid it out very clearly in his first campaign. I love the poorly educated. There's a reason he loves the poorly educated, because only the poorly educated vote for him. The poorly educated can have their perception of reality twisted. Now here's a reality. Vaccines, they work most of the time. You should have them, and if you don't, you're in trouble. As are the, I believe, 200 children or so, last I checked. 301 confirmed cases of measles in West Texas. Now, this is a county with some of the lowest vaccinations in the country. Like this. So Gaines County overall is at 80% vaccination as opposed to the 95% vaccination that is a target. They have 3 school districts, apparently. One of their school districts, School District 3, is at less than 50% vaccination rate. And now 300 children have measles. Measles, a disease that we considered essentially dead, not fully eradicated. There have always been 2 to 20 cases or so over the last few years, per year. But now, it's 301 confirmed cases. More Oh, this article is from the. Oh no, okay. But there's been more, I guess, that they've updated here. There have been 378 confirmed measles cases in 18 different jurisdictions. Jurisdictions in this case, I think, just means state, or no, states plus New York City. So, measles is back in fashion, ladies and gentlemen. Vaccinate your children. We are governed by clowns. Next up, what do we have? Oh, do you want to or do I want to?
I tabbed out. What is it?
This.
Oh, go ahead, please.
The next little bit of incompetence regarding the Department of Defense, and no, it's not the one you're thinking of, we'll get to that. The Trump administration has made a large push against DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is a fancy term, also a substitute for the N-word with the way they use it, honestly. But it is a series of programs to ensure that members of minority groups and women can get into fields where they have been traditionally restricted, be that formally or informally. Pete Hegseth, the current and hopefully former, soon-to-be former defense secretary, wrote in a book that he published last year about this guy called Charles C.Q. Brown, a very high-ranking general, I believe chair of the Joint Chiefs. We talked about him a few streams ago, and he said in the book, essentially, that we don't know if General Brown was promoted on merit or because of his skin color. He's black. We don't know if he was promoted based on merit or because of his skin color, but because he's black, essentially, those weren't his exact words. His words were, because he plays the race card so often, but that doesn't really mean anything, and it also isn't really true. The race card is just, he happens to have black skin. Because he is black, we can't really know if he was hired based on merit or because of his skin color, so it doesn't really matter and we should fire him. Anyway, this is the new regime of so-called meritocracy that the Trump administration is ushering in. If you are a white man, you are hired on merit. But if you're not one of those things, or especially both of those things, if you are, say, black or gay or a woman or Hispanic or Asian or Muslim, you can't possibly be hired on merit because we don't know that you've not been hired through DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. It sounds like die. It's very scary. Very, very intimidating. Maybe your child won't get into college because of DEI. Well, I'm a white man. I was accepted in the same college for the third time in a row yesterday, so I don't think DEI is a major concern, and I don't think I got in on merit exactly. I mean, I did, 4.0 GPA in college, but still, point is, there is no such thing as DEI hires stopping you from getting a job. Grow up, you sissies. Anyway, next. Elon Musk is, and I wish I was making this up, offering $100 to voters in Wisconsin to vote against a judicial candidate, I believe on their Supreme Court, that he disagrees with. Is it the Supreme Court? I believe so, yes. Election in Wisconsin? Yeah, State Supreme Court. This is blatantly illegal, even with Citizens United versus FEC being a court decision that exists, unfortunately. Just plain offering voters money in exchange for their vote is brazenly illegal, and what they seem to be doing now that they're in power, now that nobody will stop them, is they're doing their corruption out in the open to disguise the fact that it is, corruption.
And that everyone of their party or camp who has a brain would say something to the effect of, oh, but the Democrats have been just doing it hidden behind the scenes. I posit a question to the entire voter base of the Republican Party who ascribes to such a notion. What is corruption just different if it's behind a curtain? Do you prefer corruption that is out in the open? Or is corruption and it really doesn't matter? And what you should do is be taking a principled stance against corruption, whether it be from a populist fascist or behind a principled liberal. It is still corruption.
I'm trying to find some numbers here before we do the next one. Okay, it's pretty close, actually, but still. So, last of the supposed to be short points, but we've been doing this for almost 40 minutes. We got this in the chat, and I looked it up, and this is very interesting. There are a couple of special elections happening on next Tuesday, in exactly a week from now, and I'm watching them very closely, because this could be very interesting. So, in the Pennsylvania State Senate, they had a special election today, presumably to replace a missing person, missing candidate, probably one of the people who was elected to the Senate in 2024. This election seems to have been won by a Democrat named James Malone. A narrow victory, not a very impressive victory on its own, except for this. Where is it? Trump won this district by 57%. Bob McCormick, who is the new Republican senator from Pennsylvania, won with 56%. In a district that went... I'm going to just read this quote. In a district that went to Trump by 15 in 2024 and has a 23-point Republican voter registration advantage, Malone's victory is a loud and clear rebuke, blah, blah, blah. Point is, this is a red county. Or whatever you call the jurisdiction. And yet we have a Democrat winning. Again, winning narrowly. But a Democrat winning 50% in a district that has a 23% Republican voter registration advantage is a really important news story, especially in a swing state like Pennsylvania. There are two special... I can't write. There are two special elections in 2025. There's 4 or 5, but there are 2 in Florida. Here it is. Between this guy, Randy Fine, and this guy, Joshua Weil. Now, this is to replace Republican Mike Waltz, who is a national security advisor now, former member of the House of Representatives. There's a special election in Florida to replace him. He was elected by 66.5% last year. So if a Democrat wins here, or even gets close to winning, it will be incredibly impressive. There is a similar election. I'm not going to go look for it because it's the same kind of numbers and it's also in Florida. But also on April 1st, we are going to be watching that, or I will be at least, very closely, because I am fascinated by that. FL1? Florida 1? Florida 1. Let's find out. I was asked, and so I will.
Election will be held. It's right there on the Wikipedia article.
Oh,
you can look at it. It was like on the last.
Whatever. Here it is. First district between this guy called Jimmy Patronis and somebody called Gay Valamont. If somebody named Gay wins this district, which is formerly the district of Matt Gaetz, yes, that one. Donald Trump won the district with 68% of the vote. If somebody named Gay, who is a Democrat, wins in this district on April 1st, we're going to have some very interesting things to talk about on April 8th, which is the next scheduled Fireside chat. Anyway, that is our minor points done. That was supposed to take 20 minutes. We have been going for an hour. I guess those points were a little bit larger
than what we gave credit for. So we will attempt to be more concise, getting into what really matters, because it's finally a time. Make a note, 55 minutes into the video, we actually start talking about what's going on, by my reckoning. So, now let's get into it Daily Show style. So,
I'm letting
guys,
you do this.
We gotta talk about something. We've gotta talk about continuing resolutions and how the budget works for the United States.
Don't fall asleep.
We promise this is important. So, the way that this is supposed to work with Congress, the Senate makes a budget. The House confirms it. It's then sent to the President to sign. That's the budget for the year. It don't work like that anymore. Nowadays, we have these things called continuing resolutions. Continuing resolutions are basically hey, instead of us actually putting together a bill, we're going to put together everything that we're going to say that we're going to pay and we will revisit it by just constantly kicking the can down the road, except not for a fiscal year, more like a fiscal quarter, sometimes a fiscal half year.
Which is this case, 6 months, I believe.
Which is this case. It was a 6-month continuing resolution. Well, in order for there to be a vote on the continuing resolution, you have to have a vote on whether there's going to be a vote. That vote is called a cloture vote. A cloture vote can, and oftentimes is, filibustered. Most done by Republicans, sometimes done by Democrats, and the House Minority Leader threatened to filibuster on the cloture for the continuing resolution last 2 weeks. Or Senate Minority, I'm sorry.
Oh, by the way, for those of you who were born yesterday, filibuster is the practice of basically talking until the Senate can no longer remain in session, which is a manner of getting important votes delayed. This was very famously done in the 60s by a Southern Democrat called Strom Thurmond. Interesting fellow. Who was so racist that he stood on the floor of the Senate for 24 godforsaken hours trying to stop a vote on the Civil Rights Act. He failed and had to piss in a bucket. Anyway, please go on.
But yes, so, cloture. Here's the thing about cloture. You require 60 votes to have it passed. The continuing resolution, on the other hand, just needs 51. So, with Schumer threatening filibuster, the game was on. The board was set, and the players were in their places. For the first time since Joe Biden left office, did the Democratic Party have an opportunity handed to them pretty much on a silver platter to respond to the overreaches of the Republican Party. And if you've been paying attention, have looked at Twitter, or hell, even watched an article of The Daily Show, he didn't. Chuck Schumer decided that he was going to vote for cloture. He convinced 10 other Democrats, including his companion senator for the state of New York, to vote for cloture. So, that caused an absolute shitstorm. First thing that we're going to talk about is the fact that what did the continuing resolution say it was going to do? Because it's all well and good if Democrats say we're gonna oppose, we're gonna filibuster the budget. But if the budget is sensible, you're just continuing to put the proverbial gun in your mouth, as it were. The Republican spending bill, rather than cutting the deficit, was going to increase the deficit by another $4 trillion by the next decade, which is wildly fiscally irresponsible. I think the myth of fiscal responsibility within the Republican Party can finally be buried and have a gravestone be put on its final resting place. Because you can't continue to say one thing and do another. The party of fiscal responsibility has now, or the title of the party of fiscal responsibility has just been handed to the Democratic Party. And the Democrats apparently view it as toxic sludge, as they don't want to do anything about it. Paradoxically.
Worth mentioning
yes.
that the reason they did not want to allow the bill to be filibustered is that if it weren't passed by a particular date, I don't remember exactly when, the government would shut down, which is a strange term that it took me a long time to understand, but essentially it just means that the government is not functioning, is not paying people because it doesn't exist. And it does
not paying its employees.
It's not paying its
From
employees.
servicemen to pencil pushers.
One time during the first Trump administration, my dad and I got to go to a national park free that way. Take advantage of that life hack when it happens inevitably.
So paradoxically, here's one thing. So Trump and his administration get in on the ticket of we're going to cut waste, fraud, and abuse. Here's something that's interesting. The Republican spending bill on the continuing resolution doesn't actually cut any money from their spending priorities from anything that Doge has cut, gutted, or had the entire staffs fired of. You would think that the corruption couldn't be that more blatant, but it is. So, now that we've discussed that regardless of what the Republicans want to spend an extra $4 trillion on, that we apparently are just borrowing from thin air or having the Federal Reserve print, we know that none of the cuts that they've actually introduced are going into effect, and that money for the institutions like USAID, the Department of Education, and other federal spending priorities are just resting in the account, as it were. Let's discuss the reasoning as to why Chuck Schumer decided to play ball.
Do you want me to devil's advocate this?
You are the devil's advocate in this situation. We're about to have some opposing viewpoints.
I'm not. I don't agree with what he did.
Oh, well then, fair enough. Carry on.
Where did you get that from? We've both been railing at this fucking idiot for like 2 weeks about this.
Fair enough. My bad.
Alright, so, but I do understand their argument. I think it's dreadfully wrong. Let's talk about it. So, I am Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. I am going to stand on the floor of the Senate with my glasses all the way at the tip of my nose, such that they are almost defying gravity.
No,
and I'm going to look down.
More the Wall Street Jew. Hold on, you got to do the Wall Street Jew thing a little bit more.
That's not how he talks. Unfortunately, he doesn't.
Oh, so Jon Stewart's caricature of Schumer is just wrong?
Yes. I'm going to now read a speech with my glasses all the way down, while looking down at a piece of paper on the podium the entire time, as that, I am told, is the pinnacle of charisma. So, here's the argument. For me, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer of New York. If the government shuts down, Donald Trump will have even more leeway and even more ability to do as he wishes to cut various parts of the government. This by means of the government reopening only partially. He will essentially be able to hand-pick which parts of the government reopen and which don't. And the Democrats will be blamed... But I'm not even trying to do the voice anymore. Will be blamed by the majority of Americans for allowing the government to close and all the chaos that will ensue. We must work with the Republicans or we will be blamed for failing to do so. Therefore, I am going to cave. I am bringing a ball to a gunfight and I'm going to play some fucking ball. I and 9 other Democrats are going to vote with the Republicans and allow them to keep destroying our economy. Thank you for your time and God bless America. Shalom Aleichem. Your turn.
So, let's be very clear here. He didn't get anything from this. There was no backroom deal. There was no we will play ball later. There was nothing. There was just, I need to I need to play ball, otherwise the Democrats will be blamed and our authority and our approval rating will go lower. As if it couldn't get any worse than it is right now. Democrats are polling at a 27% last we had checked. And it has dropped since.
Has it?
It has.
To what?
Well, it had dropped. Actually, I don't know. No. It's gone back up to 27. The link that I gave you last night was more up to date. It went down. It went down to 21 during the party revolt from Schumer not reading the room.
I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah. Anyway, so we will discuss why it shot up, and it'll be pretty obvious as to why throughout the stream. But anyway, so yeah, no. Here's the problem. The crazies are already in the building. The crazies are already in the building. A government shutdown doesn't mean the government stops collecting money. It just means that the government doesn't get to borrow money to meet its budget requirements. So the inflow of cash gets to be distributed however the president sees fit. So if the government will get to pick and choose what's going on or not, it would expose, for even plainer to see, the president's priorities. And he wouldn't be able to hide behind a thin veneer of whatever in the world. I can't think of the word right now. But he wouldn't be able to hide behind his thin veneer of pretending that he cares or pretending to play ball. But Schumer disagreed with that. And whether it be from a call from his Wall Street buddies to say, hey, the market is in too much flux, we need you to vote for closure in order to have the bubble not burst, or he genuinely is of the opinion that the Democrats' opinions would go even worse if they didn't vote for closure. He did anyway. And the backlash was immense. The party was basically in open revolt, and still pretty much is. There is calls for AOC to primary Schumer the next time that comes around. I don't know if she can qualify for a Senate seat, but I don't keep up with the politicians from New York. But most Senate and all other Democrats revolted against this bill because it's wildly irresponsible. Now is not the time to be working with Republicans. Now is the time to continue to watch Republicans do their ill-fated dance as the cane slowly creeps up behind them in order to drag them off stage. Here's the thing that Schumer believes. This was the thing that probably people who are watching the situation, got a pulse on, know what's going on. Schumer believes that the Republicans will be more interested to work with Democrats when Republican popularity falls below 40%. Now, it is true, Trump, Musk, and the Republican Party as a whole, popularity is falling, and falling quite rapidly. Faster than any other Republican, hell, even Bush. But Republicans are not going to work with Democrats if Democrats' approval rating is sub 40 either. Republicans would rather die on a sinking ship that is their party rather than be seen playing ball with the crazy liberals. So long as the Republicans have a higher approval rating, they will dig their impetuous heels into the dirt and say, I can just ride out the storm. I don't care.
Here's the thing. Republicans aren't doing particularly well either. They're at 36% approval last I checked about a week ago. 36-27. 36 is better than 27, but really only in the sense that I'd rather be beheaded by a guillotine than by a saw. Both bad. And the Democrats right now seem to be, I'm saying this as though they have a coherent strategy, but they don't. The thinking, more or less, is that if we just wait for the Republicans to get even more unpopular, we can win the unpopularity contest and eke out another victory. And you know, they're probably right. We probably can do that. And that will probably get us a narrow majority in 2026 and 2028, and probably another Democratic president for 4 to 8 years. But in the long term, it's not a solution to any of the problems, to any of the reasons that people are voting for these nut jobs. I mean, yes, people are kind of stupid, and voters are ingrates who don't understand what's going on. That's absolutely true. But that's not really something that Democrats can campaign on. Both parties are incredibly unpopular, not just because of what they're doing, but because they represent a broken system. Whichever party steps up and offers real solutions to fix that broken system first will be granted the mandate of heaven for the next 20 to 50 years. If the Democratic Party can learn to fight again, which they really haven't known how to do for at least the last 30 years, if Democrats can learn to fight, if Democrats can learn to offer real policy while also offering powerful oratory, if they can moderate so as not to alienate the center, while also gearing up for a fight and calling out Republicans for what they are and offering their own solutions in their place, they can win in a way that we've not really seen any party win in half a century or more. Mm-hmm. The idea that we have to switch off between parties every few years is not that old. It's like 30 years old. Democrats held Congress undisputed for 4 straight decades, uninterrupted, not even once, between the 40s and the 1990s. And if you look back further into the 30s, there were a couple of brief Republican interruptions, but basically from 1932 to 1990, I want to say 4, Democrats were the driving political force of this country. And slowly the fire went out of them, and Republicans became more and more frustrated and more popular, and we saw the Republican Revolution in 1994, which flipped the power dynamic, and we've essentially been living in Republican crazy world ever since. Doesn't have to be that way. Democrats have an opportunity. The Democrats who learn how to fight, how to offer real solutions, and how not to pander to the crazies, will be granted the mandate of heaven.
So, let's be very clear here. As we approach the idea that there is going to be a Democratic-style Tea Party revolt, right? Because that very much is on the table. Voters want moderation. They want action. We've talked about that a little bit. Let's go about it in more depth here. Let's not just use pretty words like moderate and radical and stuff like that. Voters don't view Democrats as moderate whenever they pander to Republicans who voted for Reagan. They don't view Democrats as moderate when they want to work with Republicans to vote for cloture. They view Democrats as moderate whenever they stick to their issues. Whenever they say, I'm fighting for Medicare for all. I'm fighting for saving Social Security. I'm fighting for $15 minimum wage. I'm fighting for labor union rights. And the right is trying to take that away from you. Moderation is not, I want to destroy Wall Street. Moderation is not, I want to kill billionaires. Moderation is, the billionaires are stealing from you all. And you need to wake up. Wake up. They want action in the view of people like Waltz and Bernie, who are town halling and saying, I'm not going to give up the ship. I'm not going to stop fighting. We're in the most dangerous period of our political lives, and I'm not going to play ball. They want action by standing up to people within our own party like Gavin Newsom, who want to bring on sloppy Steve Bannon and other right-wing commentators onto his podcast. Like he's trying to be some Democrat Joe Rogan.
Coming up with nicknames for the Republicans. Sloppy Steve I like it. I like it a lot.
I'm going to stand up for this one. Like...
No, he is. I don't disagree.
I'm going to start calling him Greasy Gavin. Because he's just...
Excellent.
He's trying to do some rapprochement with the right-wingers. And that's going to be the death of the Democrat Party, y'all. Moderation is not, let's talk to Musk. Let's host him and hear him out. Moderation is not, let's work with our Republican colleagues. Moderation is, holy fuck, they've gone insane. What's happening? Why are they trying to destroy education? Why are they trying to destroy elderly insurance? We've got to do something, man. That's moderation.
The formula that voters respond to most of all for the last 10 to 20 years. And I've talked about this before. I will keep talking about it until we win on this formula. Or on a different one. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But the formula that voters respond to is sound economic policy, moderate social policy, and fighting. Simply put, from the most sort of nihilistic way of looking at it, humans are dumb, violent creatures, and we like watching a good fight. And we like having a fighter to root for. You know, everybody knows that the fights in the WWE are staged and the outcomes are pre-decided. Everyone knows that.
But they eat that shit up.
But they love it.
They'll pay $60 per view.
Exactly, or more. I don't know what I'm not into it myself, but I know a lot of people are. It's one of the most popular sports, even though people know it's all faked bullshit. Because people like having a fighter to root for. They want Democrats. So, here's the problem the Democrats keep running into. Because the Democratic Party is run by professors and consultants who are all very socially liberal and hold a lot of socially liberal viewpoints that I basically agree with. Like, trans women in women's sports. And that's great for us liberals. But 79% of Americans are against that. You can't just ignore that. You can't just pretend.
So here's what you do, right? You put on your little showman's costume and you show the world that is a moderate position, right? You show, hey, I believe that trans rights are human rights. It's a statement. It's a fact. It's not up for debate. It's not something that's crazy liberal, progressive media. No. It's, hey, I believe in the right for people to express themselves however they deem fit, so long as it doesn't hurt any other people. That's moderate. If moderation even has to just come in the air of bullshitting, so be it. The Republicans are doing the exact same thing. We have the data. We have the Gallup polls, right, to show that Americans want sound financial policy and a moderate social policy. But it's an illusion, or at the very least can be sold as such. The Republicans have been running on sound financial policy for the past 30 years. But you need not look any farther than the last two Republican presidents, Trump 1 and Trump 2, to show how backwards that is.
Bush and Reagan.
You could go back even further. But I'm talking ever since the Republican Revolution that you so handily mentioned. You don't need to look as far back as you can if you really wanted to. But you not need to do anything further than open the stock app on your phone, available on App Store on iOS. And just look. But it was sold to you as a vibe. The Republicans are just known to be the money guys. All rich businessmen are Republicans. Clearly they know what's up.
It is a fantasy that many Americans have that I've heard referred to as the temporarily embarrassed millionaire phenomenon.
So it's absolutely. So it's a matter of not just having these ideas, but selling these ideas as such. Hey, doing a trade war is bad, actually. Hey, I believe that anybody can compete in whatever sport they desire as however they want to assign themselves.
The problem... that particular issue is complicated. That gets into the whole trans issue, which is it's a whole rabbit hole that we're not going to go down today.
The Republican Party has lied and misrepresented everything they've ever campaigned on. What is stopping the Democrats from just tidying up their messaging and actually investing in sending people like Tim Walz on talk show hosts on talk shows to back down the crazies when they appear? at the very least, the air of such things worked for the Republicans. That was what everyone believed was moderate. Everyone believed that Kalala was a crazy radical when she wasn't, by any stretch of the imagination. But you said it yourself. Everyone believed that she was. And so they believed that Trump was the more moderate candidate. You're right. Americans want what they perceive as moderate social policy and what they perceive as sound fiscal policy. So when the Democrats come with those things, they better be packed nice, neatly, tied up with a pretty pink bow, because otherwise the populace simply won't give a damn. We've got to market these ideas as much as espouse them. You know what I mean?
So, I mean, the trans issue in particular is thorny because, okay, this is an unpopular opinion, but I don't care. I never have. One of the biggest enemies of the trans rights movement is trans activists, because here's the problem. I think if you explain, there's a post I saw on Twitter the other day of this trans woman, just a selfie pic in her car. And she's like, oh, I transitioned 4 years ago today. And I retweeted it with a caption going like, there are people who will look you straight in the eyes and tell you that this isn't a woman. And I'll actually go find the picture to show. Because we can get into this a little bit before we move on to the next point. So here it is. Today marks 4 years of transitioning with this selfie. This is just a normal, like, mid-20s, maybe late 20s, white, blonde-ish woman. Right? But you look at this picture, if you remove this caption here, if you just have the picture, I mean, how are you going to tell that this person is trans? I know transvestigation is like a whole big meme, but it's really impossible to tell. And
That's
all Democrats need to do, in my opinion, is just do shit like what I just did. Look at this person. This is a woman. Try and tell me otherwise. Try and prove otherwise. But, unfortunately, this isn't really the Democrats' fault so much as it is for the trans movement, which sort of, trans rights movement, which transcends, pardon the pun, sort of transcends the Democratic Party as an organization. But if all that they campaigned on was, look at us, we're normal, which might be demeaning and might be frustrating, and I totally get that, because there are people who have alternative lifestyles and who do look really weird, and that's fine, right? That's normal, that's okay, there's nothing wrong with that. But simply put, people want normalcy. They want normal-looking people in the streets. So you can do your weird alternative shit, and that's fine. You're not hurting anybody doing it. But in the public consciousness, if trans people are crazy blue-haired people with massive tits, like that one teacher from Canada, do you know what I'm talking about? The fucking...
Unfortunately.
The Ontario teacher who came to class.
Fortunately.
With her massive, like, Z-size bazoons. If that's the public image, that trans people, have in the public eye, well, then they're screwed. They're never going to get their agenda passed because, simply put, the majority will never vote for that. The majority will vote for, however, look, this is a woman. Try to distinguish this from the people who were born as women. You can't. This is how Democrats need to campaign. On reality, on common sense. This gets into a different problem that we're not going to go too far in, but how the Democrats are ideologically captured by a consultant class, which interposes themselves between the Democrats and any real coherent policy and rhetorical agenda. Trans issues are a different thing, and I kind of want to talk about it in more detail, and I want to actually bring a trans person on who is not a crazy communist, because we know quite a few, but very few who are not. Yeah. So I want to bring a trans person on at some point whenever it's in the news. We'll figure it out at some point. But because we're both straight white dudes, so it's not like we have the greatest insiders. But like as an outsider, and as a liberal, and as somebody who has a lot of friends who are trans or gay or bisexual, queer,
in the movement,
I personally couldn't possibly care less what you look like or how you present yourself. But I also understand that most people do. And that most people won't call you she, her if you look like a he, him. Most people just will not do that because it doesn't... You can't force people to accept that in their heads no matter how hard you try.
Mm-hmm. And it is an unfortunate reality. It really is.
People want normalcy. When I say Democrats need to moderate, I don't mean they need to abandon things like universal health care or, various other social programs. Their problem is social policy, like, trans rights, DEI, that kind of thing.
The crazy liberals are bringing in illegal immigrants to do sex change surgeries
on your
in prison.
On your dog, which they will also eat. Democrats have forgotten how to make arguments. They have forgotten how to make the case for why they should be in power and why their policies should be the policies that we implement. In other words, they have forgotten how to fight. Which is what we've been talking about this whole time. I can talk about trans issues. I can talk about immigration issues. I can talk about any number of issues that the American public seems to have gone very far right on over the last few years. But it's not inevitable. These opinions can change. Interracial marriage wasn't legalized until, what was it, like the 60s? At Loving v. Virginia. Was that 67 or 76? I think 67.
Lord, I wouldn't know. You're asking the wrong person.
I'm going to Google it. Loving v. Virginia. That was, 1967. So that was 58 years ago that interracial marriage was legalized. That's not that long ago. My dad was alive. No. Mom wasn't, but my dad was. So, and the public opinion about interracial marriage, like gay marriage, by the way, has progressively gotten better over the last 60 years because it's been normalized. Because people see, interracial or gay couples out in public, and they're normal. And they're not eating dogs and cats. And they're not, fucking in public. They're not doing anything weird. They're just normal fucking people. I mean, not interracial, but interethnic. I'm in an interethnic relationship. I'm very much a Jew, dating a very much not a Jew. And you would not be able to distinguish us from any other couple. I mean, you would, but not based on the fact that we are interethnic, just based on the fact that we're both a bunch of massive, silly nerds. But in terms of, we look similar, right? Just phenotypically. Mm-hmm. But, this is a tangent. I'm going to quickly harp on this, and then we're going to move on to serious shit. There is a very big taboo in the Jewish community against Jewish people, especially Jewish men, getting in relationships with the Jewish women, since Judaism is matrilineal, so it's passed down through the mother. So if mother of a child is not Jewish, then the child, according to stupid old laws, is not Jewish. So there's a big social taboo. It's very racist in my opinion. But they see, the generation of our parents and grandparents begins to see that, our kids and grandkids are getting in relationships with non-Jews, and it's fine, and they're normal, right? And the public opinion changes. That's how you do it. I know people who are trans. I've known people. My neighbor used to be a trans guy, and I didn't even know. I thought he was just a little bit high pitched. I didn't even catch on to it until he told me. And also we were in high school, so I figured, his voice hasn't dropped yet. So living among these people, and then making the argument, look at this model example. This is normal. You don't need to fear this. Instead of berating people for, why don't you support trans rights, you transphobe, you bastard? That doesn't work. Shouting at people doesn't work. But you can convince people. And that's what Democrats have forgotten to do. They have forgotten how to fight. Do you want to take the next thing? Because it's going to make me very sad.
Oh boy. So, make a note. We are moving on to the next one at an hour and 34 minutes, give or take.
Hour 35.
Hour 35. I love the thing Frankie said.
That's true.
Anyway, so yeah, Trump is trying to invoke the Wartime Alien Enemies Act of 1789. Why? Why such an obscure and ancient piece of legislation? Well, that would be because migrants, or so we are being led to believe, are being arrested and deported by ICE with no warrant or due process. Oh boy. Where do we even begin with such nonsense? So, for those of you who don't know, the history of the Alien Enemies Act of 1789. Let me go ahead and pull up here so I don't have the facts incorrect. Rather, it's also known as the Alien and Sedition Act, which is just what I have to I know it by as. It was signed into office by the then Federalist Party candidate. What in the world is his name? I remember.
John Adams.
John Adams. John Adams. I love John Adams.
I know.
I like him for different reasons. But no.
Great thinker, great
John
speaker,
Adams.
terrible president.
Yeah, I like John Adams for everything up to his presidency. I even liked him whenever he was Washington's vice president. But no, the Alien Enemies Act gave the president additional powers to detain non-citizens during times of war, invasion, or predatory incursions. Every time that this law has been invoked, it has been under the assumption that we have had issued a declaration of war, and that using the powers granted to the president during times of war, that he had the ability to detain citizens of the country that we were at war on. Adams was originally wanted this passed because it looked like we were going to have to declare war on France for the longest time. The whole Monsieur Talleyrand and all that business of the quasi-war and stuff, that's some Napoleonic era history that I will leave as an exercise to the viewer to research. But that was ultimately why he wanted it in, and it was heavily criticized at the time as just an expansion of executive branch power and the Federalists' agenda in order to attempt to centralize power within the executive branch and the federal government as a whole. Now, Trump believes, through a, let's call it, novel legal theory, that he is able to invoke such an act because the act that gave the president powers to pursue military action against labeled terrorist organizations that have been labeled by the Department of State and the Department of Homeland Security makes the United States de facto in a war, but not against a state entity, against a non-state entity, and thus he has such wartime powers. Do you see why I called this a novel legal theory? Perhaps I'm being too generous. But such act has now been used to, at the very least, arrest 22 people in the Midwest with warrants that were created after the fact. It has been used to institute quotas in immigrations and customs enforcement. Green card holding German was denied and tortured for hours by said organization. 250 people thus far had been deported to a prison in El Salvador, with the El Salvadoran dictator Nayib Bukele smugly laughing at the judge who was overseeing the case, ordering a stay of those planes to have them returned to the United States. And so much more horror stories from pure and simple federal government overreach. You want to take the reins from here, or do you think I have a point and I need to hammer down?
I am going to list off some points, and I'm going to refrain from commenting on any one of them outside of just listing the information for now. Because I want to build a case here. Now let's see, let me open up all of these articles so I have them good and ready. And for the sake of my sanity, I am just going to read the dates that the articles were published and not look for the actual dates that these things transpired, because that will take a very long time, and they were mostly published very shortly after... Here we go. Okay, got it all opened up. This is going to be a pretty long one. Okay. Let's go through the list. This all happened in the last 2 weeks. We last streamed on March 11th. Okay. Chicago. Immigration agents arrested a U.S. citizen and created warrants after an arrest, lawyers say in court. Chicago attorneys were in federal court Thursday accusing federal agents of violating immigration law and the constitutional rights of at least 22 people since January. 2 people are still in custody. 19 were released on bond. 1 has already been deported. So this is 22 people in Chicago and the Midwest at large, according to the article, who were arrested and detained without warrants. Warrants were fabricated after the fact, according to lawyers. And these ones are the lucky ones. They're actually in court and only one of them has been deported. Now we get to the interesting things. A green card holder, a German, in New Hampshire, was quote-unquote interrogated at an airport. And when I say interrogated, let me find you, here it is. I mean he was tortured. Schmidt was violently interrogated at Logan Airport for hours, and being stripped naked, put in a cold shower, and being put back onto a chair. He was denied access to his medication for anxiety and depression, suffered sleep deprivation, and was not allowed to drink anything, and eventually collapsed. He was transported to a general hospital, and he also had the flu. I'm learning some of this as I'm reading it. I haven't read this whole article yet. Point is, a green card holder, a German might I add, so not a brown guy, just a regular, green card holder from Germany, was detained by ICE, as far as I know, without a warrant of any kind. Not for committing any kind of a crime, not for failing to show his papers or anything, just because. And he wasn't just detained, he was tortured. Next. This is the big story. About 250 people who are allegedly members of a Venezuelan prison gang called Tren de Aragua, as well as some people from allegedly, a criminal gang from El Salvador called MS-13, were arrested, detained, and shipped off to a prison, as Wilson said, in El Salvador called CCOT. I don't remember what it's... Terrorism Confinement Center is what it's called. With no due process. And when I say no due process, I don't only mean there were no warrants and no trials. They didn't go through any kind of process whatsoever. We have absolutely no idea who any of them are. A couple of individuals have been singled out by journalists. But in terms of legal documentation, we have no idea who any of these people are. They are essentially just Hispanic-looking people with tattoos. Now, it's very likely that some of them are violent criminals. Probably. I mean, you take enough people from a major city with tattoos of a certain nature, and yeah, you're probably going to find some violent criminals. Maybe even a lot of them. Maybe even half of them. Maybe even the vast majority. I don't know, 240 out of 250. That still means you have 10 or so people. What is this? 238 members of Tren de Aragua, 23 of MS-13. So that makes 261. So even if you have 240 people there who really are violent gang members, you still have 21 people who are innocent, or here legally, or citizens. The likelihood that some of these people are citizens is next to 100%. Because if you just pick people who look Hispanic and violent off the street, and there is no due process, no verification of documents, nothing, you're gonna end up getting citizens. There are probably American citizens currently working slave labor in a Salvadoran prison. Because we have to own the libs.
Let's be very clear here. If even one person is a verified American citizen, that is a travesty beyond words. It is a failure beyond comprehension. Strike one, you're out, would destroy any other presidency.
There's a scene in Star Wars Andor, which I don't talk about in the video that I'm still trying to get released. I don't talk about the scene, but it's poignant, where our title character, who is being searched for by the authorities after participating in a rebel terrorist attack, is arrested in his disguise as a tourist on some beach world. He's arrested for suspicion of being involved in criminal activity that he wasn't actually involved in. He was just kind of nearby while a young, gang of guys was running away from the authorities. And he was detained because he looked like he was a part of it. Literally, the line from the show. And within a day, he is sentenced to 6 years in a maximum security prison where he's working slave labor. Look, I don't like allegory. I think it's very limited in its value. But I can't help seeing the parallels, where innocent people get picked off the street on suspicion alone, and there's absolutely nothing they can do. And we're going to get back to this again. I keep bringing it up. But this is government incompetence, and this is what turns people against autocratic governments. When it fails to give people a compliance mechanism and makes it a reign of terror that truly nobody can escape, where no amount of compliance, no amount of loyalty is good enough. We'll get back to that. This is a less severe one, but a French scientist, he wasn't tortured as far as I know, or detained, but a French scientist working at, Los Alamos National Laboratory in New Mexico, I believe, was prevented from entering the country, and I believe the scientist has a researcher's visa. But so apparently this person expressed anti-Trump views online. I'm trying to find the right information here. Point is, French scientist gets denied entry for anti-Trump views. Next. Georgetown professor Badar Khan Suri is arrested and detained by ICE. He is a legal permanent resident. He is a postdoc student and professor at Georgetown University. He was arrested essentially for, according to the government, spreading Hamas propaganda and promoting anti-Semitism. I haven't gone and verified if that's true. It doesn't really matter. I talked about this last time. He probably did. He's probably a piece of shit. But that's not really the point. The point is, he was arrested for his political views and is now being threatened with deportation even though he didn't break any laws. Last two. I don't need to track my glucose. Thank you, ABC or CBS. Trump is now talking about revoking the legal status of over 500,000 Cuban, Haitian, Nicaraguan, and Venezuelan refugees who were admitted under a Biden-era program. These, by the way, are overwhelmingly Trump voters. I'm not going to clown on them too much. It's uncouth. But I will say, this is what people voted for. This could be the start of a real mass deportation operation, especially because these people are documented. These are not undocumented immigrants. These are documented refugees. So finding them would be very easy. This could be the start of a mass deportation scheme. Next and last, and this is how we're going to start to get to our point, many of the supposed gang members deported by Trump did not have criminal records according to ICE. According to, who is this? ICE Acting Field Office Director of Enforcement and Removal Operations Robert Cerna argued that, quote, the lack of specific information about each individual actually highlights the risk they pose and demonstrates that they are... of course. Point is... Yeah, I shouldn't have started reading that before I saw how it finished. Of course, he's not going to be on our side. The point is, most of these people that are allegedly members of these gangs, which we don't know for a fact, by the way, again, some of them are probably American citizens, did not have a criminal record. And I want to go and find something real quick. There is a post by my friend Joshua Eckel I want to go find. It's going to take me a second. Here it is. Alright, no, not here. Where's it at? He posts a lot. And we've been busy talking about this other piece of news we will get to next. But first, I want to find... The story goes essentially... Here it is. This is a young Venezuelan makeup artist named Andres. I think that's how you pronounce that. And he was deported to El Salvador on suspicion of gang ties. I believe he's one of the 261 who were deported in this massive deportation flight. He has not committed any crimes. He is here legally. He has been beaten, to my understanding. He has been abused. He has been degraded, and now he is forced to work essentially slave labor in a Salvadoran prison because he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. That will be the end of my little list of incidents. But I think I'm kind of made my point. I can cross all these things off our to-do list. So, what we have here is the government deporting people based on nationality alone, if that. There's no way to verify nationality either, since no due process. We don't know where these people are actually from. They are allegedly from Venezuela, but we don't know that. So we have hundreds, soon to be thousands, of people being detained in Salvadoran prisons. And why? What is all of this for? Well, I want to show you. I got to find... There is a post that the Trump administration... Here it is. Is this it? Yeah, it is. I want to watch this. First we're going to read this this post. These are monsters sent into our country by radical left Democrats. Thank you, El Salvador, for understanding this horrible situation and taking them into their prisons. And this is what they did. Published this video. And here we have it. The supposed gang members being let out by what I can only describe as a company of soldiers, heavily armed and armored, even though these people are in chains and restrained, and they have guns to their backs. Why this level of security? For show. To drive home the point that these are dangerous monsters. And to also show that we are big and strong and we're gonna take care of them. I mean, look at all these soldiers. This is 261 people who are already imprisoned. And they have to show us these tattoos because we're supposed to be afraid of tattoos.
Nothing more than saying, nothing like saying I'm tough on crime by having two whole platoons, a company of soldiers in black getup with guns and parade formation.
Now,
while people in chains get dragged out of a plane.
The reason I want to highlight this is because these cameras were set up ahead of time. This angle, where is it? This angle here, this was set up beforehand. This is probably a drone. The cameras were sitting there, ready and waiting. These people are probably not criminals, most of them anyway. These people aren't even meant to make a statement about we'll be tough on illegal immigration. These people are fodder who happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time in order to allow the Trump administration to project an image of strength. It is nothing more than bread and circuses. You are meant to feel as though something is being done, much like the tariffs that we discussed earlier. You are meant to feel like something is being done, even when absolutely nothing is happening. Look at this. Helicopters, armored buses, a platoon or two of soldiers, armored cars. For what? Is that a Humvee? Is that a Hummer? Is that a Hummer with a gun attached to it?
I'll look whenever it
Hard to
comes up
see.
Yeah, it is.
Hard to see in this lighting. But look at this escort that they have. You could capture a small city using a force like this. Helicopters. It's not about your safety. It's not about your security. It's not about following the law. It's about creating fascist propaganda for the fascist regime that now rules our country. Say what you will. Call me a crazy liberal or whatever. These people are fascists. This is what fascism looks like. I mean, I would say you don't need jackboots and black shirts to do fascism, but this practically is jackboots and black shirts, so I don't even need to say that anymore. This is what fascism looks like. And it's not organized yet, and hopefully we will be able to break it before it is allowed to become organized. But you are at risk, is what you should be taking away from this. You, personally, you watching this, are at risk if you live in the United States, or if you're coming to visit the United States. Don't visit the United States, by the way. Just don't. Just don't do it. Unless you're really certain that you'll be safe. Because you're not. Because we're not in this country safe. We are all... I am less susceptible to this than most, because I'm white, and I have no accent. But there is nothing preventing them from coming into my home, cuffing me, and shipping me off to El Salvador. Nothing. And we know this because there is a federal judge who tried to stop this, who filed an injunction, and the Trump team kind of looked at this and went, well, they're already out of the country. Make me. And now, these chucklefucks are threatening to impeach this judge and all other judges who oppose Trump, not for committing real crimes like corruption or favoritism or anything like that, but just for being against the president's agenda. Trump and his inner circle are showing in very clear terms how they view power and the Constitution and checks and balances and the role of the president and the president's authority. They see the president's authority as being absolute. Due process is, at best, a frustrating and unnecessary distraction that we can hand-wave away. At worst, it is an outdated relic that has to be done away with all deliberate speed. They do not believe in the Constitution. They do not believe in due process. They do not believe in human rights. They believe in Trump is always right, which I believe was what they used to say about Mussolini in Italy. Il Duce is always right. Big Brother is always right. Anything to add?
None. That is ultimately the point here, to destroy legal protections by targeting the weakest and most vulnerable of society, and using that as a benchmark, a framework, to be able to destroy the legal protections of people who would be a threat to the regime. So, let's talk about what's not a threat to their regime. but haven't anyway. You like the Houthis? I don't. Oh, make a note. We've moved on to the final talk of the video at 1 hour and 59 minutes.
Excellent.
And this is going to be the last thing that we're going to talk about. So, 3-hour stream, I think. An hour for the overview, an hour for the CR budget and migrants, so about 30 minutes for a piece. And then
an hour for this, and
more than likely an hour for this. Well, it might not even be an hour. It might be another 30-minute segment, because there's a lot to talk about, there's a lot to laugh about, but there is a key point here that we will get to. So, let's talk about Yemen. Let's talk about the Houthis. Let's talk about why we bombed them. So, the very first thing that we talked about whenever we actually started to talk about the overview was the re-escalation of violence in Gaza. Now, internationally, the Houthis in Yemen have made it very clear that their strikes on American shipping and their interdiction of shipping throughout the Red Sea is a direct, in their words, a direct cause of the violence in Gaza. And they, to their credit, have quite a track record of stopping the interdiction of shipping when Israel upholds their end of any bargains made between them and the Palestinian Authority. However, as the ceasefire broke down through a direct and deliberate assault perpetrated by the Israeli government, the Houthis were like, okay, regardless of what else happens, we're going to stay principled in this one aspect. Now, if you want to talk about how awful the Houthis are in their human rights record, about how they are Islamic fundamentalists, and how they are certainly not the good guys, that's one conversation. Here's another. They made it very clear that they were going to interdict Israeli allied, and American shipping so long as attacks on Gaza continue. And they resumed their threats. What did the president decide they were going to do? Bomb them into the Stone Age and threaten to bomb Iran as well for whatever reason, because I guess apparently the Houthis are set up by...
They are.
They're propped up by Iran, maybe. Who knows at this point,
no,
right?
We knows they are.
They are? Okay, well then there you go. Apparently the Trump administration are so convinced that the Houthis could not even have a principled stance on anything, that it is simply the will of their Iranian masters. So, the Houthi strikes continue. And I would just like to make a point. And even Ron Paul, of all people, wants to make this point. The Republicans campaigned on anti-war, on America first, on bring the troops home, to stop the killing. What happened to all the pro-peace Republicans? How many times did Trump say that Kamala was just a deranged murderer that wanted to kill brown people in the Middle East? He had some legendary things to say about people who kept us there, but by the instant that he gets into power, it's like an IV into his veins. I must bomb people. So the bombs fell, and it made headline news. But the ironic twist about it was not the backlash, not the fallout, but the oddity and absurdity as to how they planned the strikes. A senior editor from the, not New York Times, Washington Street Journal,
The Atlantic.
I believe.
The Atlantic.
The Atlantic, I'm sorry, was accidentally added to a Signal group chat where the discussions of the bombings were taking place. And this gentleman, whose name escapes me, couldn't believe what he was reading. And didn't think much of it until the plans and bombings were executed in the manner prescribed within that group chat. He since said that he had left, considering it an odd experience. Let's take a moment, ladies and gentlemen, to revel in the idea that our national security has now the operational security decorum of high school weed dealers. I think everyone in this chat, at the very least, knows one person who uses Signal. I mean, shoot.
We both do.
Arken and I use Signal. We use it for Project Liberal nonsense. But it's a secure and encrypted form of communication. But the reason that you use such secure and encrypted forms of communication is for nefarious purposes. For planning your little militia get-together. For like that and Telegram and other peer-to-peer encrypted communication software. Apparently, if it's good enough for your high school drug dealer, it's good enough for the federal government now. Let's be clear. The United States government has been the king of operational security for probably going on the past 50 years, if not longer. There are secure rooms and places where information can be quarantined. The government is given, like government officers and employees are given special phones because, sure, while Signal is an encrypted app, or rather is an encrypted means of communication, you could take a screenshot and have that screenshot be uploaded to your iCloud and then, oh no, you've just been compromised. So government employees are given special phones where that can't happen. Servicemen are given special computers. The people who've served know the red desktop background of the special OS so that you don't fucking leak shit.
I have my fucking display on the
Whoops.
I mean, I'm just texting about my fucking dad in the hospital.
We've been the king of operational security for as far back as I can remember. And we take such good precautions to do that. We can create quarantine areas, or sensitive information quarantine zones, even hell, in just a tent pitched out in the woods that's guarded by fucking white noise generators and Secret Service personnel. The room that Arken's server, the Situation Room, is made out of, is one such location. But in the tech bro, groiper sphere, that's not good enough. We've got to now do these things over Signal. We've got to do them on our personal phones. Where mistakes like this, let's bring in a chief editor from the Atlantic, can accidentally join or be invited to. Because I don't trust everybody here. It's insanity. The decorum that is on display here is absurd. Think about it. This was a politically moderate, perhaps even excessively ethical American journalist and not an enemy of the state. Could you imagine if they invited the one person who's actually on the payroll of Reuters at the New York Times, or not Reuters, I'm sorry, who's on the payroll of Russia Today at the New York Times, could have done with half of that information?
Or somebody from Al Jazeera or CGTN or the Jacobin.
It's repugnant to think about. Any thoughts before we continue?
I was thinking about this yesterday as I was reading about this. I guess I always kind of knew it. But the idea that people's lives are being decided, people's deaths are being ordered, essentially, over fucking Signal is horrifying to me. Because, I mean, the Houthis probably did need to go. I mean, I don't really
They
think...
still do.
I don't really think any organization that has Death to America, Curse on the Jews on their banner really needs to exist. But one way or another, people are dying, and any military strike, no matter how precise, is going to incur civilian casualties. Just as a matter of course, which is fine. War sucks, it happens. But nonetheless, people's lives are being lost because of Signal conversations, and I would like to actually go and show you some of this. Son of a... Of course it's paywalled. Why wouldn't it be paywalled? That's just excellent. I want to go find... Here it is.
Support Arken the American on Patreon so we can get past all the annoying as shit paywalls we have to deal with while researching for these.
Not a bad idea, actually. I'm trying to find some of the screenshots. Joshua might have some. But, yeah, the way they're talking about this, I mean... I have group chats. Like, I have a family group chat. They're talking the way I do in my family group chat. It ain't good that we're there. Let me find the images, because they are worth actually going and looking for. This is a special kind of idiocy that we are dealing with. Here, where is it? Posts. We've been taking the piss out of this for a whole, like, day and a half at this point.
Yeah, and just to be fair, again, just to reiterate, the Houthis don't need to exist. But their reasons for interdicting Israeli and American shipping are clear and have historical precedent in their previous actions. Right? Again, not to drone on about this, the point that I'm ultimately trying to make here is this is something that you could see happening from a mile away. And rather than the president sitting with his advisors in the Situation Room saying, well, Netanyahu just ordered a giant strike. The Houthis are likely to start retaliating. What would you like us to do, Mr. President? I think we should bomb them. I think we should interdict their ability to hurt American shipping before they're even able to have a missile come out of the ground. Instead, you've got J.D. Vance posting memes about killing Houthis in a Signal chat.
Doesn't look like I'll be able to find... Is it? Nope. I don't think I'll be able to find it. The way they're talking about it, they're texting about war plans. And so this is what I wanted to talk about. This is what struck me in particular. I want to show you guys a clip of something.
Mr. President, your reaction to the story in the Atlantic that said that some of your top...
He's getting it, ladies and gentlemen, don't worry. I can hear him furiously trying to...
No, I have it. Shush. Stream hasn't caught up for you. Be quiet.
Mr. President, your reaction to the story in the Atlantic that said that some of your top cabinet officials and aides had been discussing very sensitive material through Signal and included an Atlantic reporter for that. What is your response to that?
I don't know anything about it. I'm not a big fan of the Atlantic. To me, it's a magazine that's going out of business. I think it's not much of a magazine, but I know nothing about it. You're saying that they had what?
They were using Signal to coordinate on sensitive materials and
Having to do with what? Having to do with what? What were they talking about?
with the Houthis.
The Houthis? You mean the attack on the Houthis?
Right.
Well, it couldn't have been very effective because the attack was very effective. I can tell you that. I don't know anything about it. You're telling me about it for the first time. Anybody else?
Now, I believe him. I believe that he did not hear about this until now, because as far as we know, he was not in this group chat where they were organizing things. And this is where I want to talk about, this is the title of the video, of the stream. Donald Trump, the 47th President of the United States, is a complete absentee president. He is not there. And I mean that in terms of he's mentally not there, but I also mean he's physically not there most of the time. He gives some speeches, talks about the crazy Democrats, evil, crooked Joe Biden, and he signs a couple of executive orders that are handed to him that he almost certainly has no idea what they are. And then he goes golfing for days at a time. And who is running the country in the meantime? Not Trump. He's not making almost any decisions right now. I don't think he has in this entire administration. He is a puppet. He is a front. He's a shell company for a criminal enterprise that is running our country. I don't know what to call that criminal enterprise other than the Republican Party, though it goes beyond that. It's not all of the Republican Party, and it's not all in the Republican Party. But Trump is not in charge of anything. He is not leading our country. Now, I'm a liberal. I abhor autocracy and monarchy and dictatorship and all forms of authoritarianism. But goddammit, if we have to have a fascist dictatorship, can we at least have a fascist dictator? Because, as it stands, we have all the same things that a fascist dictator would be doing that are bad, but none of the strong standing up to our foreign adversaries. Trump is senile. He is just not there mentally. He is very impressionable. His mind is very malleable. He is easy to influence. He has people in his inner circle who are definitely Russian agents. People say Trump is a Russian agent. I agree, but I don't think he knows it. I think he just has poison poured in his ear, and he repeats it. And this isn't like a good Tsar, bad boyars thing. This is a dumb Tsar, dumb boyars thing. Trump is an idiot. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's not in charge. Calling him a dictator is flawed. He wants to be one, to be sure, but he doesn't have the mental capacity for it. He's an idiot. And he's not mentally there. He's not mentally competent. Why, then, is he kept around by the people who are really exercising power, which, in case you're wondering, as far as I can tell, it's Elon Musk, J.D. Vance, the Russians, and the Heritage Foundation. Why is he kept around? Because he's incredibly personally popular. He has a personality cult that has ensnared at least a quarter of the American population, and that personal charisma can't really be replicated by anyone. In one of our streams before this one, I said that we're in a new American monarchy. They're going to keep running Trump until he dies. Fuck the Constitution, fuck term limits, they're going to find a way around it, or try to anyway, and they're going to run him again. They're going to do everything they can to do that, because no other candidate holds that kind of power. And all they really need is for him to occupy the chair, and for him to hold the title, while they operate behind the shadows. But here's some food for thought before we leave off. So all of this is really funny, that they accidentally got somebody into a group chat and that person happens to be the editor-in-chief of a liberal newspaper. That's really funny. We all need levity in moments like this. It's a very dark time for our country. We need to be able to laugh at something, and it's good that we have this. It's also a great opportunity for Democrats to launch an opening volley against Trump, because they need to take advantage of this. They need to be launching investigations, which I already see them starting to do, and they need to make criminal indictments. They need to turn this into a show of Democrats fighting. This is how opposition should behave, and I think they might actually possibly take it. But it is also a very clear reminder of the fact that with all the cruel, evil, violent things that they're doing, like with the deportations that we talked about before, with all of the foreign influence that they're allowing into our government, with all the malice that guides so many of the actions of this administration, what defines Donald Trump and his rule more than anything else is absolute, unmitigated, unadulterated, sheer stupidity. He's an idiot. He's a mad king. And the people around him are more sinister and more intelligent, but still very stupid. I mean, they're talking about cutting Social Security, which means what? Which means two things. First of all, they're going to try to cancel the next election somehow, or rig it. They're not governing like people who have to face the voters in 2 to 4 years. That's one. But two, it means they're so far removed from public opinion and from what people want, what people care about, that they don't see that they're walking themselves into their own graves. As the opposition, it is our job to utilize this incompetence at every step. Trump is the linchpin for a very loose, very internally fractious coalition. We've talked about this before. You have the fascists, as represented by J.D. Vance, the ideological fascists and neo-monarchists. You have the tech billionaires like Peter Thiel and Elon Musk. And you have Trump himself, and people who are very personally loyal to Trump, no matter what he says. He holds together this coalition through sheer force of will and personal popularity that really doesn't exist anymore, but is a remnant of a time when he was more, a sentient human being. They're disunified. If you read those chats that the Atlantic editor found, or was kind of brought into, you have J.D. Vance pretty much arguing with the defense secretary about really dumb things. Basically, Vance made the claim that doing this will help the Europeans, and that's a bad thing. Vance is a massive piece of shit. That's not news. The point is, these people are dumb. These people are incompetent. They're robbing us blind, and they're selling our country to foreign powers and domestic billionaires. But they're really dumb. A moron with a chainsaw can still cause a lot of damage. And we should still be afraid and angry. And we should still recognize this for the threat that it is. But at the same time, we should recognize that they're dumb. They don't know what they're doing. The Nazis in 1939 were a very dangerous force. There was probably no military that was as powerful as they were at the time. But by 1944, they were all on drugs, they were all squabbling and fighting each other, they couldn't agree on anything, and that is how the Allies won. Hitler, famously, was on a shit ton of meth. Well, Elon's on a shit ton of ketamine, we know that, it's pretty well documented. They're all consumed by their own form of personal incompetence. They're all stonewalling and blocking and tripping over each other. We have to exploit that disunity, that organizational ineptitude. What is scary about fascist regimes is, in part, the propensity for violence, but also a ability to unify power under one person and direct it like a god against the unworthy. That is what differentiates Trump's administration from most fascist regimes. Because this fascist dictator, he does wield lightning like a god, but he does so with a blindfold while asleep and on anesthetic. The center cannot hold. American politics, now and for the next 4 years, is not anything we've ever seen before. It is the court of a mad king. like in the olden times. And you have all these courtiers and viziers and advisors and nobles and all other manner of scum turning around this king, trying to sway him in one direction or the other to achieve their aims. And sometimes, like with Ukraine, like with Zelensky a few weeks ago, the king will have an outburst of righteous indignation born purely of himself, and his advisors then have to try and calm it down to prevent everything from spiraling. And while they're wasting time trying to get themselves together, we, the opposition, have to take every opportunity to exploit them. This is a wheel with a weak linchpin. We have to pull it out and watch the spokes fall apart. We have to drive the cracks deeper and deeper and deeper. January 6th could have ended the American Republic in a single day. The reason it didn't is because, as the January 6th Commission found from various investigations and a lot of text messages, by the way, running theme, nobody could agree on how anything was supposed to work. Nobody could properly organize anything for shit. Nobody could decide when, where, or how, or what the goal even was. We can exploit that. More people are going to be deported and be forced to work slave labor in foreign prisons, and domestic. More people are going to be tortured. People are going to die. People are already dying. More people will suffer. It will be awful. But we have an opportunity. This isn't Putin. This isn't Erdogan. This isn't Orban. This isn't Xi Jinping. This isn't like any dictator you've ever seen before. Because this isn't fascism exactly. It's the term we use because that's what their politics look like. But it's missing the key strong leader. This is a Mad King's Court, which was one of the titles I floated for this stream. This is a Mad King's Court with the king at the center and courtiers constantly wheeling around him, trying to curry favor. We can break them apart, but we ourselves have to present a unified front. If we do, and I do think we can win. We can defeat them. I say Democrats, even though I'm not a Democrat myself. But clearly I'm aligned with them, for the moment anyway. We can defeat them. We can win, and we can move past this dark moment in American history. And that's why I wanted to end with this, because I wanted to give you all some hope. This is not inevitable. They've won for now. Doesn't have to be that way. I'm going to circle back to what I started talking to about this. They were planning these airstrikes without the president involved. What does that tell us? They conspired, essentially, behind the president's back. They made a plan, and then somebody, probably the defense secretary or the vice president, came to Trump and said, hey, let's do this thing, it'll make you popular. And he went along with it. That's what a Mad King's Court looks like. I said a month ago that we're in a new American monarchy. Well, here we are. This is what the new American monarchy looks like. Welcome aboard. Wilson?
Yes, boss.
What do you got? Or are we done?
In terms of a final statement about everything that's going on,
Yep.
I'll be brief. I'll be really brief. This is rehearsal. It has been rehearsal since 2016. Maybe not for Trump, but for his lackeys. And now they have galvanized around a loose-fitting gang of neocons and fascists. You were right. This is not Russia. This is not Turkey. This is the United States. And for the moment, we still have a voice. And we should use it. And we will be using it, I hope. We have a chance. I don't know when. I don't know where. But if I had to posit a guess, it'll be sometime in late April, where the center will not hold, and either the government will have to respond with force, or the government will just have to ride out the next few years until they have the next thing through to election after election. But so long as Trump is able to be prettied up for the camera and toted out, he will be good. He will be used in such a fashion, and he will be the crux on this political seesaw that will determine whether or not we have a future, or all we have to look forward to is a very pretty idea of democratically flavored autocracy. In the next stream, we will, going into April, going into the end of the first 100 days, be able to galvanize for ourselves what the tone is going to be, at the very least for the next 2 years. Because if he can survive the first 100 years without being overthrown or impeached or have his own party revolt against him or die of old age. I'm sorry, first 100 days.
100 years is kind of a tall order for a guy that old.
100 days, my bad. Going into the next 2 years. The point that I'm trying to say is that these 100 days will finally crystallize into something malleable. What the new plateau of normalcy is going to be, if he can survive it. And I hope in our next stream, we are going to be able to see the results of this new plateau of hell we find ourselves in.
But don't get yourselves too excited, because it's possible we're wrong.
It's always possible that we're wrong.
I'm finally experiencing internet problems, but we did get through the entire stream without it, so that's nice. But while we're here, I will take questions at the end of this, as I always do. We already have one, and I'm going to answer it. In your opinion, how quickly will the GOP collapse if Trump passes? Well, first of all, I don't like that word. I prefer the term fucking dies. When Trump dies, I don't think the GOP will collapse, in the sense I don't think it will stop existing and stop being a power structure within the country. I think we're kind of stuck with them forever. But in terms of internal unity, instantly. I mean, the Yugoslavs managed to keep themselves together for like a decade after their dictator died, but that was because the economic and social conditions that he created were managed to be maintained for that long because it wasn't a democracy of any kind. Same will not be true here. There will be a struggle for leadership and there will be factionalism, and I just don't think any prominent leader in the Republican Party right now has the same kind of personal charisma and ability to captivate people that Trump does. Vance is deeply uncharismatic and extraordinarily unpopular. Don Jr. probably has the best chance just because he has Trump's name, but he will struggle, I think.
He's also a chronic shit stirrer, and not in the way that his father is. He has a tendency of pissing off his constituents. He has a tendency of pissing off his coalition partners, and he does so under the guise of pissing off his opponents, which he mostly just makes a fool out of himself rather than actually playing the politics of the modern day, which is piss off your opponent. It's what gets you elected.
So,
oh, go ahead.
Don Jr. probably is the most likely successor to Trump. Just, again, he shares his name, he shares his dumb politics, he shares his dumb haircut. But I don't think... I mean, the sequel is always worse, right? It's going to be a pale imitation of his father. He can't speak the way his father can. I've heard him speak. He can't speak the way Trump can. He can't rile crowds the way Trump can. The GOP will recover. In what form, I don't know. But the collapse of unity will be instant. And it will be a struggle for power between various factions. Which, I don't know how that's going to
I would also posit that what will also matter is the way in which that Trump passes, dies, whatever. If he is assassinated, I don't think the GOP will collapse. I think it will galvanize and turn him into a martyr. And that anybody who steps up, who just says that they're doing the Dawn's wishes, will
the Dawn.
be able to ascend to some form of glory. But if he just dies of natural causes, I doubt that the party will be able to succeed in making him into a martyr. And if they do, then we are really fucked. That's the litmus test, I think. The Republican Party will survive in its current state if Trump passes, based on how quickly they are able to make a divine caricature of him, to martyr him on the pillar, what's the thing? The pulpit of neoconservatism, fascism, and neo-monarchism.
Martyr isn't enough. They need a new leader. After Jesus, you had the apostles. After Mao... After Mao...
Mao 2.0.
Well, no, we had Zhao Enlai, who failed, by the way, for the most part, to be a second Mao. After Kim Il-sung, you had Kim Jong-il. After Stalin, you had Khrushchev. Most of them failed. It's very hard to recapture the particular energy that a leader of a personality cult can create. But I don't like this framing. I don't like the idea of, like, waiting for the dictator to die. Because, again, people want action. People want shit to happen. And just not being the other guy and waiting for him to die isn't gonna work. Democrats have to present their own idea of America.
We have to have our own secret sauce.
Trump presented a vision of America. It's a backwards, perverted, twisted vision of it, but a vision. Democrats don't have that. They defend democracy, but a democracy that, as far as most people are concerned, It has failed them. So what are you defending? Our failure. Democrats need to defend democracy, of course, but they can't just keep saying, we're the party that supports democracy. Okay, why do I care? I am the average voter. I don't know anything about your political theory. Why do I care about your fucking democracy when I can't afford to live in a house, let alone or even an apartment? And our answer is, well, tax breaks and subsidies. We need to present a positive. We need to present a positive vision of what our America looks like. Because aesthetics are powerful. Trump relies on 50s aesthetics a lot, and it's bullshit, but it's potent. Democrats, the key difference between the Democrats and the Republicans, between liberals and conservatives, is conservatives fundamentally believe our best days are behind us and we must conserve them, while liberals always believe our best days are ahead. We have to present that vision of our best days ever ahead of us.
Revive futurism. Woo!
I believe, I don't remember who it was, I think it was Hayek? Somebody once said that the difference between liberals and conservatives is conservatives want to preserve your liberty while liberals want to expand it. And it's broadly true, minus the part where conservatives want to preserve your liberty, because they don't. But it's true.
Curtail your liberty.
The idea that something needs to be conserved kind of betrays the idea that the past is the best we'll ever have. Liberals propose that the future is the best we can ever have. The future will always be the best that we can have, because there's always room for improvement. Democrats can present a vision like that, and they can win. I don't see any further questions. I'm going to scroll through and see if we have a couple.
Let's see here. Taking questions. Any questions at all?
That's right.
Final call.
All aboard!
Before we end up here. All aboard!
You're going to peak my fucking audio, you bastard.
That's my best Tom Hanks. How'd I do?
Oh, right. The fucking Polar Express.
Polar
Pretty good.
Express, yeah.
Pretty good, actually.
I tried. It's one of my favorite movies. Any questions? Any questions at all? There's 20 people in the audience by my reckoning.
He's asked
Come
before.
on. Y'all rascals. Any questions?
He's asked before signing, what is this executive order? Ah, okay. Yeah, it's true. That was the,
Call
yeah.
Trump Chef Boy. Call Trump Chef Boyardee, because boy, we are cooked.
Yeah.
Comes to question. Bane Banes. I've seen an ARMA operations with better OPSEC and more professionalism in the planning. That's tragic.
As there appear to be no questions, we're going to call it here.
We have some hell to be diving. Hell divers.
No, I need a shower to take, and then we'll talk.
Fair enough.
I always
I'll take the
shower after
opportunity
these
to,
streams.
Yeah, just to wash off the filth.
Wash off the depression.
Oh god, I miss my office chair. All right, everyone in chat, real quick, since we've now re-entered the relaxed portion of the stream, this slave driver over here has me switch out of my very comfy lazy boy office chair during these streams because it creaks too much to preserve your precious eardrums. I want to get back to it.
Alright.
Cruel creature. But no, if that's all that we've got going for us this stream, ladies and gentlemen, thank y'all for tuning in. We really appreciate everyone who comes out here. The more we see, the more we are incentivized to do. And though we're going to continue to do this no matter what, as we are principled fellows, it is the interaction with the public that we look forward to the most. So, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I've been Wilson.
I have been and remain Arken the American.
and we will see you all next time. Hopefully with either better news or, let's face it,
Worse.
Russia.
The next stream is slated for, I believe, April... Yeah, it's every other Tuesday, so April 8th. I might not be in town. I have to check my plans. That might be the first one we have to move. TBD, I will be posting about it in the Discord server. And to that end, Discord server should be linked in the description. If not, I will quickly edit the description after we finish this. Patreon.
Join Discord, follow
there
our
as well.
socials, follow on Patreon.
Yeah. So, I will speak to you all at varying points over the next 2 weeks, and then I will see all of you in one place, hopefully on April 8th, to be determined. Till then,
Possibly on the 1st. We might, if you're out of this, if you're not at home on the 8th, but you are on the 1st, maybe we could cover those special elections.
maybe, if there's anything to cover. TBD, I will post about it on my Discord server, and possibly on Twitter, but most likely on Discord. Until then, I will see you. Good luck, hold the line, have a drink. You've earned it. Not too much.
Y'all have a wonderful evening. Good luck and good night. Signing off.